I'm here today with author of the number one hot new release on Amazon called Buyer First, Grow Your Business with Collaborative Selling, and also Unbound Growth founder, Carole Mahoney. So good to see you, Carol. Good to have you here. Let me read the rest of your bio before you say anything. All right. Carol is changing the way the entire sales industry sees itself and how buyers see it too. She has been called the sales therapist at Harvard Business School, where she is an entrepreneurial sales coach for their MBA program. She's also the chair of the Boston chapter of Emblaze, formerly known as AAISP, near and dear to my heart, and has been named as a top sales influencer by LinkedIn and Sales Hacker, and voted a top sales coach by Ambition. Welcome, Carol. So good to have you here.
So excited to be here. I feel like a long time coming, but following the podcast for so long, I feel like I know all of the guests anyway.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes. And I know you knew Barb Giamanco, who started the podcast, and you have donated to her scholarship fund. So thank you very much for that. You had proceeds of your book when you launched your book. Some of the proceeds went to that scholarship fund. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Still donating 10% of the net proceeds of 2024 to the Barbara Diamanco Scholarship Fund through the Sales Education Foundation, because with people like Barbara and people like you that helped me to actually get started as a sales expert. And so it's very near and dear to me.
Ah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for the shout out to the scholarship fund. I'll be sure and put it in the notes. And you have this great book that you launched in the fall. You launched it at Inbound, and I was there, and I remember all the hubbub about it. And is that a phrase still?
It's great. Yeah, it's a real word.
Little old school. I'm dating myself. But the book is tremendous. I don't say that about every book. I get lots of books to read. People send me books all the time. But Carol, what I know about you is that you really put a big process in place that started with our friends at Heroic Public Speaking, where you could meld your ideas and really get a concept for a big idea. And then you hired a coach to help you with the book, and you hired experts to help you with stats. And it's come together to be really great storytelling as well as really great facts. So congratulations on that. I love to thank people in public when I have I've done this privately, but I wanted to thank you in public for writing such a helpful book. And what's interesting is that you wrote it really for entrepreneurs, but it turns out that salespeople, even senior salespeople, tenured salespeople, are thanking you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. When I sat down I've been trying to write this book for 12 years and stopped and started. And through Heroic Public Speaking, I met AJ Hopper in her top 3 book workshop. And one of the first things that AJ said was, a book is not about something, it's for someone. And just as I would tell people to focus on their buyers, I needed to focus on who my ultimate ideal reader was. And why was I writing this book? And I realized that this is the book that I wish I had 20 years ago when I first started my business and was trying to figure out how to sell, even though I hated the idea of sales because it was pushy and slimy and sleazy. But I had to do a lot of work to start changing that mindset. And so the book I wrote, I really wanted to write it for that small business owner who has to sell to feed themselves and their family, where the startup founder has to find product market fit. And the irony is that by focusing on those people, it actually started to resonate with the salespeople and the sales leaders and companies and organizations. And I started to realize that part of the reason might be because a lot of times in today's sales world, we have to think like entrepreneurs do. Like, we are actually running our own businesses within another business as a salesperson or a sales manager or even a sales leader. And the concept of putting your buyers first today, I think, is something that runs through every aspect of sales, or it needs to. And so I actually just got a message on LinkedIn this morning from someone who described themselves as a senior sales leader. I'm not old, I'm seasoned and experienced, but this is a book that I want every salesperson who ever comes onto my team, I want them to read. I just got done signing like 30 or 40 books for an entire sales team because they want to make sure that they're putting their buyers first in all of their interactions. And so I'm just thrilled that it's having the impact that I'd always hoped that it would have, in actually changing the way people see sales and how they interact with people in sales.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us what collaborative selling is in your mind.
So a lot of times we think of sales as something that we do to others. So I'm going to persuade you or influence you or convince you or sell you.
Close you.
Yeah, I'm going to close you on this idea. No one likes being sold to. Even salespeople don't like being sold to or feel like they're being sold to or pitch slapped, as we so commonly call it today. But sales, if you really think about it, is a collaboration between understanding what are the problems and issues and challenges that someone's facing and what are the right solutions. And in collaborating with our buyers, we're actually involving them in the process. And it really stems from some research that I found in several sources. One was Harvard Business Review and Harvard Business School had talked about the IKEA effect. And what they found in the IKEA effect is that when we are collaborated with on creating a solution, we place more value on it because we've put our input into it. And so we feel that it's customized and personalized to us. We're willing to pay more for things that we've had a say in than things that have been handed to us as completely finished. And then I've also uncovered some research from Deb Calvert's book, Stop Selling and Start Leading, where they surveyed over 500 B2B buyers to find out what are the behaviors and attributes that you value most in salespeople. And the thing that buyers valued the most were to people who helped them think of new ideas, that actively listened to them and came up with new solutions. And so this collaborative nature of selling, where we're actually, instead of trying to convince people that this is what they need and collaborating with them to come up with what the solution needs to be, that's what buyers today are demanding. And then if you also look at LinkedIn had done several surveys over the last couple of years, which they also called buyer first. And in those surveys, they found the same thing. Buyers want to be collaborated with. They want to be actively listened to. They want to be feeling like they're part of the process and then you're offering them new perspectives and ideas. The old way of selling to people and at people, using all of these techniques is what it's always been focused on. And I believe that's why sales is seen as this pushy, slimy, sleazy thing that we do to other people versus this consultative, collaborative way of selling where we're actually working with them. And I think the other part of this is that we have to be willing to tell our buyers that this is not a right solution for them. When every solution is a perfect fit and for everyone, it isn't for anyone. And for me, collaborative selling is about selling with our buyers to helping guide them towards the decisions that are in their best interest, not just the thing that we're selling of the day.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think about how the economy has shifted, and when times were good and there was plenty of money being literally thrown around, you didn't have to be that sharp and you didn't have to be that clear and you didn't have to have a must have. You could have a nice to have and people would buy it. Things have changed so much that now those companies that had sales teams where they were just throwing stuff at the wall, and those people that just plaster you with LinkedIn messages about, "Hey, Carol, here's what I sell, and I know you could probably use it, and you don't know anything about Carol." So those people, hopefully they all go away. I know they won't, but many of them will. I still get a few of those. I made a purchase last week where someone cold emailed me on LinkedIn, cold messaged me on LinkedIn. And they had something that I actually was looking for, and they had a very compelling story, and I ended up buying it. So it's not that it doesn't work, but you have to know enough about your buyer to understand what their problems were. And this company found my problem and they came and offered solutions for me, which is fantastic, right?
They did their research for one thing, most likely, and they crafted a personalized message to be able to appeal to what they found in their research. So it wasn't like they're going to just send this message to Laura and the same message to Carol. It wouldn't be relevant.
Yeah. And so it does work. To cold outreach still works. You have to know, you have to do your research, and you have to understand. So let's switch gears a little bit, talk about mindset, because you and I talked a little bit before we started recording, in that we know that mindset is hugely important in sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in a sales role. But a lot of people don't talk about the steps to take to actually help you improve your mindset. So tell us a little bit about that.
And this was something I became fascinated with when, as I said, when I first started my business, I thought of sales as pushy, slimy, and sleazy. I wanted nothing to do with it. I avoided it at all costs. And that cost was very high. And in order for me to start being successful in my business, I know that I needed to learn how to sell. And I tried all of the things. Like you see all of these books behind me, it's because I tried all of them and failed miserably at all of them. And I couldn't understand why what was working for everyone else didn't seem to work for me. And I was also hearing things from sales leaders like, we've invested in all of this training, we've invested in all of this coaching, but we're still seeing the same results that we were getting before. I don't understand why it's not sticking. And one of the things that I tell them is like, there's three ways that we learn. One is, do we know what to do? Can we actually do it? Do we actually know what the steps are to take to do it? But then the big question becomes, will we do it in the moments that matter the most? I often relate it to weight loss. We all know that we need to eat our vegetables and exercise more. We know this. We know that we can do it, but it's the beliefs and mindsets that we have towards those actions and activities that determine whether or not we'll do them at all or do them well. And in sales, when you think about specific mindsets that get in our way, for example, one of the most common ones, the most common one is as far as all salespeople go, is what we call the non-supportive buy cycle. And I call it the how you buy is how you sell. How you make your purchase decisions and your belief system and mindsets around that will influence how you sell with your buyers and the excuses and stalls and things that you'll accept, the discounts that you'll give. Because you want a discount, so of course you're going to give one to someone else. And what we don't talk about, though, is how do we start going about changing these things? What are the steps and actions that we need to do? I am a huge fan of Grit by Angela Duckworth, Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, The Atomic Habits by James Clear. And the thing that I love about these books is that it talks about the impact that mindset has. Some of the things that a lot of these books don't talk about, though, are what are the everyday steps that you can take as an individual to start to address and change your own belief systems, to change your non-supportive beliefs into supportive beliefs that are going to actually support you in executing on the tactics and actions that you need to do. And so when I write in the book, I really started digging into the psychological research behind how we actually change our minds and our behaviors and our habits. And the thing that I learned is that it's not suddenly we wake up one day and we're going to change. It's the small little things that we do every single day. For example, when I was losing weight during the pandemic, I lost like 105 pounds. And it wasn't because I made these drastic changes all of a sudden. It was small little things that I started doing. For example, I started doing something that's called mindful eating, which is when you're like, for me, I grew up working in restaurants. You ate as fast as you could, as late as you could. And that habit carried with me into my everyday life. And so when I was working from home, I'd have a screen in front of me or my phone or something that was distracting me from actually knowing what it was that I was doing in that present moment. So I ended up eating more than I should have. Taking a simple action every day of slowing down, chewing more, taking sips of water in between, putting my fork down between each bite of each meal forced me into the habit of slowing down so that I was eating more mindfully. We can take similar types of actions to address our own mindsets. For example, we talked about the non-supportive buy cycle a moment ago. One of the exercises that I have my teams go through and my coachees go through is think about a purchase that you need to make. And then let's limit the amount of time we give ourselves to make that purchase. Let's limit the criteria that we use to make a decision on this purchase. And then let's go to 3 sources to find it and have an established budget. And so establishing small little changes that we can make in our everyday lives will start to change our belief system towards things, which will then change our belief systems in the circumstances and situations that we get into in sales. And again, it's small things that are built up over time. And we often wonder, are these going to really make a big difference? But just like mindful eating did for me in losing weight, it can have the same impact and does have the same impact when we talk about our sales beliefs.
Yeah. I think about when I was a new business owner years ago and I would travel, I never wanted to have the more expensive seat on a plane. Like I didn't want somebody next to me to tell me that they paid half of what I did. And so I would just scrutinize and wasted all this time looking on different ways. And this was a long time ago, so it wasn't as developed, didn't have the tools that we have today. And I must have spent so much time on it. And that's what helped me with my non-supportive bicycle. And what I ultimately started doing was just looking for a flight, seeing if it was a fair price and booking it. And it probably saved me hours upon hours in terms of the value of my time, which when you think that through, it just doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
to have a spreadsheet where you're keeping track of stuff.
And that too.
Yeah, so it is possible to break yourself of those things, which is great. And when it comes to mindset, I think if you just catch yourself having something, if you have a thought in your head that's not supportive to your goals, you can actually identify it, and then you can say to yourself, what would be another thing I could say to myself? These are conversations I have with my own mind, and then I can shift it, but it's a matter of catching it. And
Yeah.
I think that's the first step.
Yeah, that first step is that definite self-awareness. In the process that I use with clients, first we go through a personally meaningful goal exercise. Because if you're going to go through any kind of a change, behavioral change, mindset change, you need to know what is in it for you at the end of all of this so that we can continue to motivate ourselves to make these changes so that we can start to develop the self-awareness. And then it's an examination of, okay, what are the beliefs that I have around this particular thing? In the book, I talk about examining what is your sales origin story. So when we think of sales, what do you think of? Do you think of the used car salesman? Do you think of the experience that you had with a salesperson recently? So that you can understand what are the beliefs that I have around sales and then examining those for, are they true? What makes me think that they're true? And really applying some logic to those and rationalization. Some of the exercises that I have people go through is journaling to get that self-awareness of what so often we have all of these thoughts that are running through our heads and we never even stop to examine them and what that might mean and how it's impacting us. And so you're looking for plane tickets, for example, and how much time am I actually wasting in doing this? And how much am I actually saving by doing that? And so becoming aware of those and then how they're impacting us. And one of the things that you said that's so critical to this process is it's not enough to just be aware of it and then try to stop yourself from doing it. You need to replace it with something else that's going to support you. I remember when I quit smoking in high school and I tried to do it cold turkey and over and again, I would fail until I finally realized I needed to replace the smoking vice with something else. And so I started drinking coffee. So that's just one example of how you need to not only become aware of the belief, but you need to actively replace it with something else that's going to support you in the moments. Things like meditation, mindfulness, these are all small things that people can do every day to become aware of the thoughts, the impact that they have, and then replace them with something that's going to be supportive. So not only will you be better at sales and relating and putting your buyers first, you'll also feel as a better human being. I often say you can't be a good salesperson without being a good person.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's so true. What's one thing you learned about yourself as you wrote the book, or maybe once it came out?
One of the things I think that I learned is, we all have a sense of a need for approval and validation from other people. And that's something that I've definitely been working on, I don't know, forever it feels like. But in writing the book, I put a lot of my own personal experiences and stories in there. And I remember at the point that I sent it to my publisher for the first time, and the thought that I had was, oh my God, someone who doesn't know me is going to learn and read about all of the deepest, darkest things that I've ever had to go through. And I've
That-
had that thought for a second. And then I thought, click, send, because that's why I wrote the book. And so after that moment, it was one of those things that I realized it doesn't really matter what other people think of me. The only
Yeah.
thing whose validation that I need is my dog and my kids and my husband. Those are
Yeah.
the only ones that really matter. Everything else is just noise. And I can't remember who it was that said this, but what other people think of you is none of your business. And so for me,
Exactly.
writing the book really, I think, started to put the nail in the coffin of my need for approval. Not that it never comes up, but I'm literally an open book at this point. And so there's really not anything that you're going to be able to dig up or on me or anything like that. My need for approval went out the window with the publication of the book. It was also a bit of therapy for me. As I was going through and writing out some of these stories, I was getting teary-eyed and emotional, just remembering what it was like to go through those things again and realized how far I've come, how I started here and went here and all of the little steps along the way, how it accumulated into this thing. And we go through life without ever taking into account how far that we've come. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I learned and continually try to remind myself of whenever I'm having, like yesterday, I had a bad day. bad sales day. And I just had to remember like how far I've come and focus on the bright spots of things. And so that's just a few of the things that I learned about myself through the process of writing the book.
That's great. Yeah. For anybody that's having a bad sales day or you just had one, just start fresh. Start.
Mhm.
It's a new day. It's a new hour, even morning versus afternoon. Forget about the morning. Start fresh in the afternoon. And it's not unlike athletes who they had a tough loss the night before. You got to start in the next day as if nothing could happen but a big win.
Focus on the bright spots. That's what's
Yeah.
for me yesterday, as I was focusing on the bright spots. So I had a bad sales day, like deals that I thought were going to go through didn't go through, or I missed something. And then I got an email from one of my newer clients who wanted another 30 books signed to be sent to them. And so I'm sitting at my kitchen table and signing books. And my husband starts taking pictures of me doing. I'm like, all right, this is the bright spot that I'm going to focus on for the day. So ending your day by focusing on a bright spot, I think developing that gratitude will help you to get through those tougher spots.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's buyer first, grow your business with collaborative selling. I highly recommend it. And I also recommend Carol as an amazing speaker. And you're a great facilitator, you're a great MC and so speaking, the books for your team. I don't do this with everybody, but I definitely have really appreciated what you put together here, Carol. And I wish you great success this year and lots of new things. So be on the lookout for what Carol has going on. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.